Hello and welcome to another Super License F1 stream. It's the weekend of the Japanese Grand Prix, which was run earlier today in my part of the world. Might have been earlier in the day in your part of the world. But it's been nice to have a little break from streaming, but I'm back. I missed the Singapore Grand Prix stream, but I'm back. You've got me back again. I'm Rod from Super License, you probably know. And we usually just pop on here pre-race, but this week don't have the opportunity to do that. It's post-race, baby, because that's the way time zones work. Normally it's really good to have a race in Japan because I get to watch it live without having to stay up late and everything, but didn't get the chance to do that today because I was busy. But I hope you watched the race. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that your teams did well. We've got a couple of news stories that we're going to cover and see what has been happening in the old F1 world of late. Lots of places that we could start, but I guess really the obvious place to start is with Red Bull. Hey, love them or not, love them or hate them, but they're doing extremely well. So let's pull up. Let's have a little moment of, I guess, Zen. I don't know what you want to call this, but
let's go, guys! Unbelievable. Yeah, fantastic weekend, first of all. I think the pace has been amazing. So, yeah, very proud of the whole team, the whole year already. I think we've been really dominant.
It really feels great, to clinch this Constructor Championship. It's a special moment for the whole team.
And to win the championship here, it's incredible. Everyone can be super proud of this.
And that wins us our 6th Constructors World Team Championship. So congratulations and thank you very much. You were totally awesome and dominant this weekend.
Good times if you're a Red Bull fan. Obviously, maybe not such great times if you're just a fan of watching other teams win. But they did it. They've won their 6th championship. It's been obviously a big period of dominance right now for Red Bull. Do you have to wonder? And I mean, I don't know what the opinion going into this was, but there was something very special about this trophy and this race in particular. Not just that it was gonna deliver Red Bull their 6th championship, but this Japan Winners' Trophy lights up with flag colours when kissed. A touch-sensitive micro switch connects to an array of LED lights programmed to display the winner's flag from a series of colour combinations available when they kiss the trophy. Come on. It says here, kiss me. The switch is illuminated with the words "Kiss Me" on the back of the trophy, which the winner's flag is pre-programmed after the checkered flag and before the podium ceremony. A similar design will also be featured at the US Grand Prix in Austin later this year. So you win the race, you get given this trophy. When you kiss it, it lights up. It's like something you buy at a dollar store. I just don't know. Just don't really know about that. I don't know that will be sit up there right with the gold of the Silverstone trophy, or like the steering wheel. Is that Monza, the silver steering wheel? I mean, even the big gorilla, which I'm not a fan of, at least if you kiss the gorilla, nothing happened. So yeah, well done, Red Bull. You've done extremely well. It's been it's been a period of extreme dominance with very few flaws or very few chinks in the armor. We did see, though, lately, some of their weaknesses were exposed, especially in Singapore. So from out of nowhere in Red Bull, Singapore, fucking hell. From out of nowhere in Singapore, Red Bull were way off the pace. Couldn't get any laps together in practice. Couldn't get any speed out of the car in qualifying. Were really nowhere in the race. This is after Red Bull looked like they could win any race on any track, starting from any position on the grid. All of a sudden they show up in Singapore and the car's just a total dog. It's like a whole other car. It's like they shipped the wrong car. It's like AlphaTauri and Red Bull just switched badges or something. So I know a lot of people, after Max came back and won, in Japan were saying, what happened in Singapore? Was that those regulations that were changed? And Max Verstappen in particular was very fruity in his language, telling them to all go and suck an egg. But also, there was this footage from Singapore of Max, which I thought was really telling. Let's have a look. This is Max here, not very happy. Yeah, did that in Singapore. He went over and did this in Singapore. Outrageous. And then he also did this one. This is maybe the worst one. This is all from Singapore. Can you believe it? Unbelievable. Max, what are you doing? This guy has to calm down. Look at this. This terrible. That was during Singapore practice when they were running a Lotus car. So not a perfect run, but a pretty damn close to it for Max, really, wasn't it? There was also, you may have noticed from the Japanese Grand Prix, just run and won. It was a pretty poor race for old mate Sergio Perez, which I think we should dive into the details, because I don't rate Sergio Perez, and this is the kinds of races that he has where I'm like, yeah, see, I told you. The region Sergio Perez returned and retired again in disastrous Japanese Grand Prix. I'm not saying it was disastrous. Crash.net is saying that. Many people are saying this. The Red Bull driver endured a terrible race following a first lap contact with Mercedes Lewis Hamilton, which forced Perez to make an unscheduled early pit stop for a front wing change. Perez was then hit with a 5-second time penalty for a safety car infringement as he entered the pit lane, fighting his way through the pack. Perez then collided with Kimi Magnussen, tipping the Haas driver into a spin at turn 9 following a late lunge. That resulted in Perez picking up more damage to his Red Bull, as well as another 5-second time penalty, with the Mexican making a second trip to the pits for a nose change. This guy really hates the nose on his car, doesn't he? Red Bull then sent Perez back out into the race on lap 40 in order to serve his 5-second time penalty, presumably so it doesn't carry over in some form to the next race in Qatar. After serving his 5-second time penalty on the next lap, Perez was told to retire for a second time on lap 43. This was incredible if you saw the race, because Sergio Perez kind of just sits in his car for about 10 minutes and then they finally send him out. He goes out and does one lap, then they say, box. And he comes in and he serves the penalty. Then he goes back out and then they say, retire the car. All orchestrated, all within the rules. They checked with the FIA apparently. And the commentary team were right on it, saying, I think they're just doing this so that they can avoid the potential of a carryover penalty. Because if you get a time penalty during a race and then you don't have a chance to serve it because you've retired, there's a chance that you can get a grid drop for the next race. That's what Perez was trying to avoid. And he did. Frankly, he had to do a bit of a walk of shame though, which, I don't know, that champagne will taste a little bit sour if I'm Sergio Perez, I have to say. But look, an incredible period of dominance this year and last year from Red Bull. By my count, we've had 38 races and they have won 32 of them. Vast majority of them at the hands of Max Verstappen, but still, to have only dropped 6 races in more than a season and a half is just remarkable. So, well done, Red Bull. Please, everybody, do better so that you can start beating them. That was not the only story, not even the biggest story from recent times. So let's have a look at what else has been going on Red Bull and regulations and the FIA. They're becoming such good friends, aren't they? So Red Bull may have just won their 6th World Championship title, and they may be on a string of wins, the likes of which F1 has never seen before. However, it's not all smooth sailing. This happened after the Singapore Grand Prix, when Max Verstappen was investigated for 3 different incidents of impeding other drivers during qualifying. 3. Didn't get any grid drops in, he got 2 reprimands. Apparently his first reprimands for the season, which I guess means he's been a good boy. You could also say he's been so fast that he hasn't really had any opportunity to impede anybody else. But anyway, so after his 3 incidents in Singapore without incident, the drivers weren't happy. They frankly had the shits. Norris and Leclerc want tougher penalties after Verstappen's reprimanded for impeding. Norris was driving like this.
I'm getting a hard-on in the middle of the race.
So angry. Championship leader Max Verstappen was investigated for a trio of incidents after qualifying for the Singapore Grand Prix. None resulted in a grid penalty, but 2 led to reprimands, one of which was for impeding Yuki Tsunoda early in Q2. You just don't impede the Tsunoda. Verstappen had just completed his first timed run of the session and passed Tsunoda. I wish F1 journalists would try just a little bit harder to not put typos and grammatical errors in their articles. It makes them really hard to read. Verstappen had just completed his first time run of the session and passed Tsunoda, who was on his outlap before the final corner. After backing off on his way to the pits, Verstappen delayed Tsunoda on his flying lap, leading the AlphaTauri driver to abandon his effort. After a steward's investigation, which AlphaTauri did not attend, Verstappen received a driving reprimand. Red Bull were fined €5,000 and given a warning. Verstappen was reprimanded for a separate incident where he remained stationary at the end of the pit lane. This was the one that I actually thought he was going to get away with, because the commentary team was saying drivers do this all the time. They pull into the pit lane and just stop, and then they take off like a practice start. He was there for a long, long time though, and it basically telegraphed that he was waiting for a gap to open up, which is just like, well, fine, sit in your garage and wait for a gap to open up. Don't block the pit lane and do that. Several other drivers have collected grid penalties for impeding over the course of the season. Speaking ahead of the Japanese Grand Prix weekend, Norris said Verstappen's blocking of Tsunoda should have come with a stronger penalty. Look how much of this I've highlighted. Holy heck. I don't want to say too much because I'll just create controversy, but I just think the blocking one on track was the one that should have had a penalty. You block someone, it's not just down to the team. I know the team got the fine at the end of the day, but it should be down to the driver to look into his mirrors. You've got nothing else to do the whole lap, just look in your mirrors. Good points. A lot of people seem to struggle to do that. You know when something happens and you say, yeah, a lot of people have problems with that, when you really mean one person has a problem with that? Over to Charles Leclerc. He said he was a bit surprised Verstappen had only been reprimanded for stopping at the end of the pit lane. That could open quite bad situations in the future, but it's always an open discussion with the FIA, trying to explain to them what our point of view is and how to improve. I'm sure we'll have a discussion tomorrow evening at the briefing. Norris called for tougher penalties. I think it should just be harsher penalties for blocking people, because so many people do it. It ruins your lap, ruins your qualifying. It put Yuki out in qualifying when he was P1 in Q1. What did Yuki have to say about it? Well, not much. Tsunoda was reluctant to discuss the incident, but said he sought guidance from the FIA after 2 separate grid penalties earlier this year for impeding rivals. I don't really want to talk about Singapore, but in general, to be honest, it feels like I'm the one getting quite consistent penalties, but it is what it is. Tsunoda has been investigated over 14 incidents in the opening 15 rounds of the championship, more than anyone on the grid. Oh no, poor Yuki.
The car is bad, we know. Please drive it.
That's what he has to deal with. So look, it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter whether you're, fighting for the championship or if you're in the slowest car on the grid. If you impede someone else, you should get a penalty. Just should be fair and consistent, and I know everybody calls for that. That's what the drivers said. Here is what happened. This is what changed. This is where things not got spicy. They were already spicy, but this was like fuel to the flames. FIA says Verstappen penalty let-off was an error. The leniency afforded to Max Verstappen and Logan Sargent for impeding in Singapore Grand Prix was not to be used as a precedent for future incidents in Formula One. So that was the other point here, is that Logan Sargent also impeded someone, but he was let off. So, I mean, this is, as much as the conspiracy theories go, this was something that people would point to be like, oh yeah, they also let Logan Sargent off just so that they could also let Max get away with it, so that no one could say, oh, you just always let Max get away with it. Boy, that's a complicated world. Verstappen and Sargent escaped the usual 3-place grid penalty for their respective cases of impeding in the Singapore qualifying. Red Bull driver Max Verstappen was actually investigated 3 times, cleared on 1 count, given 2 reprimands. It has been admitted by the FIA stewards to F1 teams in Japan that both Max Verstappen and Sargent should have received 3-place grid drops. They determined in Singapore that for both Verstappen and Sargent, their on-track impeding offences were the fault of the teams, even though in the past it has been explicitly and repeatedly stated that a lack of communication from the teams should not be used in mitigation of 3-place grid penalties. Ahead of the Japanese Grand Prix weekend, the GDPA director George Russell feared what happened had set a new precedent. You want to have consistency across the board, and it seems pretty clear-cut with a number of those incidents, said Russell. Obviously, what he's concerned about is if one driver impedes another driver and they get a penalty, and then a different driver impedes another driver and they don't get a penalty, which one do you point to say, well, look, I deserve a penalty or I don't, based on how you've adjudicated in the past? When there's such inconsistency, you've got no hope. I mean, if there's one thing that we can look at, if there's one thing that we can be thankful for, is that the FIA made a mistake, admitted that they made the mistake, took the only steps that they had to rectify things, but they did it. Now, I know that the anti-Red Bull team will say, like, pretty convenient, Max avoided the penalty, and then they were like, actually, let's just wipe that whole thing from the record. Let's just avoid that entire ugly incident and move on. Look, I mean, the only thing I can say is if Max Verstappen did it again, he wouldn't get away with it. And for all those times that you get mad at the FIA, like saying, you got it wrong, why haven't you fixed it? Why aren't you rectifying something? Well, it just did. So let's embrace that. And now for something completely different. As they say in the classics. Really good to see Sebastian Vettel back around the Formula One paddock. Essentially, this kicked off a whole bunch of thoughts in my mind, so I guess let's just see where they take us. Sebastian Vettel returns to Suzuka to create a new F1 legacy, B hotels. Ahead of his retirement from Formula One at the end of last year, the four-time world champion said The four-time world champion said it was the one circuit he'd consider making a one-off return to drive in the future. That was another time where a driver made a joke and it was reported as news. He was joking, everybody. He won the Japanese Grand Prix 4 times and clinched his second world title here in 2011. The race has a special place in his heart. Fine. It meant seeing Vettel return to the F1 paddock on Thursday was no surprise. It was not a race he was going to miss, but he wasn't here to race. He came for the bees. This is already sounding like a parody script or something. As part of his push to highlight the global environmental crisis, Vettel came to Japan to launch Buzzin' Corner, a new biodiversity project. With the support of F1 and the FIA, Vettel turned Suzuka's Turn 2 into Buzzin' Corner. The curbs of the circuit have been painted black and yellow, with the infield at the corner a number of bee hotels. Small wooden huts have been installed to promote biodiversity. His hope is that Suzuka will be the first of many tracks to host similar projects. The idea is to make a buzz, make a noise, and create awareness around the topic. Lean into the joke, Seb. The idea is to make a buzz, make a noise, and create awareness around the topic, especially the loss and decline of biodiversity. Vettel explained to media, including The Atlantic at Suzuka on Thursday. I'm seeing this a lot in F1 media at the moment where they say, Vettel told members of the media, including us, which is like, we get it, you were there. Okay, it's cool. Here's a photo of Buzzin' Corner, all the drivers there. Vettel worked with a local artist to design the huts to resemble the Ise Shrine, which is around an hour south of Suzuka. Each hut has 3 floors that can be filled with wood, branches and twigs that can serve as a food supply, shelter and nests for the insects in the area. Vettel informed all of the F1 drivers and teams of his plans in the lead up to the Suzuka weekend, prompting the entire grid to come along in support. One hut was reserved for each team, and the drivers being invited to use black and yellow paint to decorate it as they wished. Some drivers wrote their names in large letters, while others put message or drew some artwork. Yuki Tsunoda wrote, "I love bees," in Japanese on the AlphaTauri hut. Look, nothing against bees. I bet bees are great. I'm not a big fan personally, but I hear they're really important. But what this triggered for me is obviously the biodiversity message is really important. But all this got me thinking about is great bee moments in F1 history. So we're going to recount a whole bunch of them here. Shout out to Michael Taylor, whoever this is, at Michael Danger 19 on X. Fun fact, in the late 90s, Jordan F1 was sponsored by British tobacco brand Benson and Hedges. To get around restrictions in countries where you couldn't advertise cigarettes, they created a hornet mascot and changed the B&H text to read Buzzin' Hornets. So here's the Benson and Hedges logo here. And then we go to a race where you can't advertise tobacco, and then whoopsie daisy, never mind, it says Buzzin' Hornets now. Pretty great. But I mean, it gets even better. We just strap in because this is a wild ride that we're going on here. Let's check in with old mate Daniel Ricciardo. Friend of bee alike. Let's see how Dan goes when he encounters a bee.
Looks the potential wettest, and then is there a bee you're looking at? That's a really big
It
one.
was a big old bee. Carry on, sorry.
Is there a bee? You're looking, there's a bee. For old F1 drivers, I mean, F1 is technically an outdoor sport, I guess. One of the hazards being bees. I don't know if there's the old F1 stats man person used to tweet all kinds of crazy stats about F1. I just wonder which F1 race has the most, highest concentration of bee population. Let's check in at what happened when Lando Norris had a run in with a bee.
Definitely Dutch. As well, it's finding talk from you guys.
Sorry?
You can I'll post that link somewhere so you can rewatch it. You barely notice there's a bee, and you barely notice that he reacts there at all. But there was in fact a bee there. I know he handled it with such grace. It was hard to tell. This is something else. I'd never seen this before, but researching this clip of Lando Norris on a live stream trying to play, like he was like gaming with some F1 people during lockdowns and stuff. And I mean, if you've never seen this clip, you're in for a treat.
It's bigger than a hornet. It's like a bird, man. Hey, I have no visual. Oh, it could be behind the door for all I know. I see it. I have a visual. This dude! This dude! I told you! It reproduced! Oh, I'm serious, man! There is two of them! Right! Oh my god! They're right next to each other, but I couldn't get one at a time, alright? So I'm going for it. It's been a pleasure.
Taking it
Come
well.
on, Lando, you can do this. 2 for 1.
2 for 1 is no!
I've been It's been a standoff.
5 flat!
Poor Lando. I mean, you might think that you're not even going to believe this, but there's more Lando bee/wasp content to come. The good thing about Lando is that he's really grown into himself as a Formula One driver, and he's also grown into himself as just a person, an adult who can handle whatever nature throws at him. There's the bee. You get one chance, bee. Whack! Just Street Fighters that bitch right in the face. Incredible. Lando ain't taking any shit from any bees, which is, it's good to see. It's good that a guy can handle himself. What else have we got to show you today? Well, we've had some silliness, but we do need to talk a little bit about predictions, because predictions has come back in a big way on the Discord, and everybody's jumping in there before qualifying to say who they think is going to take pole, win, and 10th. And, we've been doing the podcast for 10 years, but nothing really captured people's imaginations the way predictions did. So, I know it's very easy right now to predict, it's very easy right now to predict who is going to take pole and win. But the thing is, it's quite often quite difficult to pick 10th. As soon as you pick someone for 10th, you're like, this guy, always, this is Mr. Reliable for 10th. As soon as you do that, he'll be on the podium or he'll crash out on the first lap, I guarantee it. But the thing is, it is very rewarding when you actually do get it. And I was going to show this just to demonstrate the dominance that we have at the moment. This is from Fastest Pit Stop, the qualifying gaps from the Japanese Grand Prix, visualized by Just F1 Car. So thanks, Just F1 Car. But imagine like all the drivers start at the same time and then they cross the line. Here's where they finish. Verstappen here. Way back here, all the other drivers all bunched up. And interesting, Perez in the same car. Here's Verstappen, and then there's 1, 2, 3 drivers ahead of him, and then Perez, and he's slower than those three. This really tells such a story. Not only does it explain that definitely Singapore was a blip, and with Japan they're back on their pace. But again, there's never been a better time if you're looking to get a clean sweep in the prediction game. Never been a better time to jump into the Discord and do that, because picking pole and win is easier now than it's ever been. That's to take nothing away from anybody who gets it, which happened this week. So I was on the Verstappen train, but I had Albon. I was backing in Albon in the Williams, thinking, no, he's going to be on for points. I think old mate Drew was on Verstappen, Albon as well. But in the end, and I was watching the replay, knowing these predictions, and then when Ocon slid into 10th with about 5 laps to go and no one behind him, I think Lawson was behind him and quite a distance behind, I was like, this is going to happen. And old mate Mike Nickus had Verstappen and Ocon in his predictions. And then I started cheering. I was getting excited. I was like, come on, Ocon, hang on there. And he did it. So we bring predictions back, 3 weeks ago or something. And this is after we did predictions for literally maybe 2 or 3 years with nobody. Like, we had hundreds of entries, pole win 10th. Nobody ever got it. It took 2 or 3 years before anybody predicted it right. We bring predictions back. 3 weeks later, somebody's gone and hit the Grand Slam. Verstappen, Ocon. So well done. But now the challenge has been put out. Now the gauntlet has been thrown down. Everybody now has to try to equal that. I'm going to be trying harder than ever. Sometimes I muck around and put in a jokey prediction. No more. I'm done with that. If someone else can make it look easy, now I have to go and get it myself. But what you do to do that is you go to the Superlicense website, which is superlicense.fm. There's a link there to the Discord. Join the Discord. There's a predictions channel. Before qualifying, go to the predictions channel. Tell us who you think will take pole, win, and 10th. We settle this based on the starting order of the race. So if Verstappen takes pole but gets a grid drop, let's just say hypothetically that happens. If Verstappen takes pole but then gets a grid drop, he doesn't count. It's whoever starts the race. That counts as pole. And then whoever finishes the race, again, based on penalties, grid drops, or whatever, whoever finishes in 10th, and obviously he wins, that's how we work things out. That's how we play the game. But I encourage you all to do that. If you want to send us anything, we don't promote this enough, but if you want to send us anything, you can email us at superlicenspodcast@gmail.com. There's basically links to all of this stuff on the website. So head over to superlicense.fm if you want to do any of that stuff. But I definitely encourage you to jump into the Discord. It's really fun. There's not much else to say. I think we're pretty much out of content. When I look at my content and I see nothing else to do, I go like this.
Wow, I guess this is a big moment. I should care about
because it means that I get to wrap up the stream, which is, it's always fun to do these. But it's always nice to get to the end because it means I get to go and edit these into nice, interesting little clips, edit out all my mistakes and make myself look better. Thanks so much for watching. Talk to you next time. Take it easy and I'll see you probably before the next race. Bye-bye.